You have to understand, you gave an example yesterday of 12,000 children. Of the 12,000, 10,000 came up either alone, they weren't necessarily young children, but either alone, or they came up with traffickers and coyotes. And these coyotes are bad dudes. But they came up with other people, brought them up, and they used them. They're using these children. That's 10,000 out of the 12. Of the 2,000, a lot of the people, when they came in with their children, this is their third, fourth, fifth time trying to come into our country. So this is not a perfect situation.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
You know, I get hit with just amazing understandings all the time that we're hiding in plain view. And one of those was watching Melania live about an hour ago. We were carrying it at one of the emergency shelter centers for the collapsing Latin American road warrior hell pit that is Mexico, and then on down south just gets worse until you hit Chile and a few other places that are doing better. Just truly hellish. And she's talking to the heads of the facilities, who, by the way, are almost all Hispanic, because they act like it's like all these evil white people have these poor brown people in cages. And they're there at the school. It's what it is, a school. And they point out most of these children do not have parents. Their parents have been killed. And they're just with other people. They said almost all of them are not with their parents. They were either killed or they came alone. And they cry because they're in the middle of the night. They've seen people murdered normally. 80% get raped. America isn't doing that. The children are fleeing that. And I understand that and I humanize it. But how do we become the bad guys? Because we're good guys on average. And so we have a conscience, so it gets to us when we're being called all these horrible things by the Democrats and the cold-blooded globalist corporations that are anti-human. So during the break, we got CNN, Fox on in there. We've got satellite feeds. I saw the president live. We just grabbed it just minutes ago, because I've never heard him say this. It didn't click to me until now, even though I've covered it previously. It didn't click in this whole debate. He suddenly says, hey, almost all of them aren't even with their parents. Their parents are dead. Their parents are gone. Don't you understand? There's not parents for them to be with. This is all made up most of the time. And I guarantee you, he was watching Melania just like we were. And he got that point too. And see, people ask how me and Trump are synced. It's just common sense as we learn more about everything. And again, I already knew that. I'd covered that before, but it wasn't clicking. This is a big deal, folks. In fact, I've seen the numbers. Something like 70%, they were saying 80%, don't have parents with them, don't have anybody. And, you know, I'd be crying for joy if I'd just gone through hundreds of miles of Mexican hellhole desert with road warrior literal cannibalism and stuff going on, all these devil-worshipping drug cartels, literally. They're all devil worshippers now, basically. All the old cartels have been knocked out. It's gone down to people filing their teeth sharp now, just like it does in any society. It just goes back to barbarism. So Trump just knocked it out of the park again, as we all learn and we all discover this ourselves. Why do you think Obama and Bush and all them back to Ellis Island would separate people till they found out who they were? Since 1630, before we were a country. That's Ellis Island, 1630. It was used as a quarantine by the British. Why? 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 See how the same thing, chain link fences at Ellis Island. Because of disease and because of criminals and because of that. That's what you do. And Obama's so bad, he actually stopped doing it the last few years and just said, load them on buses, don't check anything. And then they got grabbed by child smugglers. That's the Washington Post. But the Democrats are so sick and so evil and so insane, they try to sell this hoax on us. And the Washington Post of today goes along with it. You people at CNN, MSNBC, the Washington Post, do you have children? Do you have any soul? All you idiot Democrats that love to run around and bitch and talk about the racist gringos and all this crap. Why are you trying to get up here with all the racist gringos? And by the way, whites are now a minority in this country. Hispanics are America. Why the hell would you throw that birthright out? Because Big corporate television told you to because they want you to remain peons, serfs in Spanish. Peones. Well, I'm not a peon. And America isn't about being peons. But it's a litmus test for white people, blacks, Hispanics, anybody. If you believe mainstream media, you are a peon. You're going to continue to be a slave because you're too stupid to take freedom in your own hands when it's looking at you in your own eyeballs. God, these people make me sick. Unbelievable. Let's hear from the president having the same revelation we all just had. Here it is.
We don't want to have people, we don't want to have children separated from their parents. You have to understand, you gave an example yesterday of 12,000 children. Of the 12,000, 10,000 came up either alone, they weren't necessarily young children, but either alone, or they came up with traffickers and coyotes. And these coyotes are bad dudes. But they came up with other people, brought them up, and they used them. They're using these children. That's 10,000 out of the 12. Of the 2,000, a lot of the people, when they came in with their children, this is their third, fourth, fifth time trying to come into our country. So this is not a perfect situation. This is very bad. Now, port of entry, if you go to a port of entry, it works out very nicely. They've been doing a very good job, but they don't want to come in through the port of entry. That's called doing it the legal way. But many of the people in the 2,000 category, you're talking about 2,000 children, those are people that have tried to come into our country many times the same way. They don't want to go into the port of entry. Usually that's for a very bad reason. Why don't they want to go in illegally? So you have to ask yourself that question.
All right, that's good. Good job, President. And he's so OCD about fixing things. It's so good how he figures how it all works and tries to make it better and tries to make it fair because he wants the good luck, the good mojo of being a good guy. See, that's how I am. That's why Trump said to Kim Jong-un, I have goodwill for your people. I want them to be successful. I want you to stop being a little snot-nosed punk. You want to be a man? You want to be a real leader? Or you want to sit there and act like an idiot for the rest of your life? And reportedly behind closed doors, that's what he point blank told him. Oh, yeah. And you know what? Kim Jong-un loved it. You ever seen him smile or act like that before? And it doesn't mean this whole thing's going to be perfect, but this is reality setting in. All right, I'm going to give the number out, the toll-free number to join us, 877-789-ALEX, 877-789-ALEX. First-time callers, I want to hear from you specifically, or folks in Mexico that want to chime in on this. Or if you disagree, you know, I'd love to hear from you as well, 877-789-ALEX. But we're talking about this subject. Now, let me just stop right there and try to do some mid-air refueling to fund this incredibly effective operation that is dreaded by Soros, the Clintons, the crime networks, all of them. By the grace of God, I'm still alive, but please pray for us as well. But there is nowhere you can spend your money and get great products at the same time that will absolutely devastate the globalists. Now, we have our new Extendawise Heart and Body amazing product with the very best fish oil for the heart, the very type that's good for the heart and the cardiovascular system. It's a fact. And there's a lot of it, and it's concentrated. It's called the EPA type of fish oil from the fjords, wild harvests, so it's very clean from the North Sea up there, not from the Pacific. And it's got a bunch of other great things. It's got this 100-to-1 special patented garlic, 100-to-1 concentrate. So it's like a huge amount of garlic that you get in each pill, concentrated. And it's got a bunch of other ingredients that are just amazing. 30% off, no, 35% off. And then it's 30% off, too, when you get it with the combos with DNA Force and other things that are great for the heart. And then we've got a bunch of other specials that I just don't have time to get into here. But we're having what I'm calling our bestseller sale, where we are selling everything that's been a bestseller that wasn't previously on sales at 25 to 50% off. So I'll tell you about all that when we come back briefly. So an amazing point has been brought up by Melania's visit that the president then picked up on about an hour and a half later. We just played the clip if you joined us. The president pointing out that depending on whose numbers you look at, 75 to about 87%. If you go with the president's latest numbers he's gotten from General Kelly and others, it's 83%. 83% of the children coming in to the United States out of the war zone that is Mexico don't have parents. And a lot of them were killed on the way by the smugglers. There are many famous cases. I've read the Texas papers. You never see it as a big national story about a young 13-year-old Hispanic girl or a young 12-year-old Hispanic young man who loved the cartels and loved the smugglers and thought they were heroes because the news was saying they were great people. And they went to join it, and then they got killed in the desert after they were robbed. They have no idea how vicious and animalistic these gangs have gotten because the worst of the worst get in control, and then it just gets worse from that point. So it's amazing. 80% of the women coming up through Mexico get raped, according to Amnesty International. But no one should be checked. No one should be stopped. But during the Melania visit, which we've got some more clips of, it's still ongoing, she goes in to get briefed by the people that run it. And the head of the operation tells her, I don't want to get his name and get him on because they announce who he is, but not his name, points out what they just said, that most of them had their parents killed. This is what they're fleeing. And then America's bad. So it just shows how crazy leftist media is trying to cause a civil war, trying to cause civil unrest. Notice I've been saying that for years. Now mainstream news admits the Democrats want violence. They can't win the debate. And they just target people with the dumbest propaganda I've ever seen. Here is that clip one more time that Melania's fact-finding mission pointed this out. It's a number we already knew, but we weren't thinking about that. This whole red herring of separating them from parents. These are little kids wandering out of the desert. Their parents have been murdered in many cases. You understand, folks, that they say 190,000 people. I looked it up again last night. That's the latest numbers this year. Have died in the last decade that we know of. There's a couple 100,000 that never showed up anywhere else that didn't leave Mexico. So we're talking hundreds of thousands of dead, most of them trying to go through to El Norte, the north, as it's called. Think about it. Can you imagine? I saw a documentary. I forget the name of it. We had the makers on a few years ago about border wars, I think it's called. And it's actually liberal, award-winning filmmakers. They believed all this till they went to the Arizona border, saw what was happening to the ranchers. They went and spent 2 years in Mexico in the civil wars going on. And then the towns have vigilantes that fight back against the cartels. And then after they beat the cartel, they tend to turn into it. I forget, what was the name of that film? It's so powerful. It won a bunch of awards. I saw it in the theater. No, Sicario is a fiction, but it's based on true stuff that happened. It's a sheep-dip film, which means real events happen, but they change the names. It's a documentary. The point is that the Democrats are playing on people not having any understanding of this. So one more time, I'm going to play this and then hit some other news, and I'm going to start going to your calls. But here's what they don't want you to see. Here it is.
Madam First Lady, there is some occasions where some children do not have anybody to go back to. And then in those situations, they are further assessed by the legal service provider that can help identify if they qualify for some type of legal relief. And eventually some children will move on to refugee status and not unaccompanied children. And again, it's few and far between, but we do have that process where, you know, some children do not have anybody to go to, whose families have been killed, murdered in just different, very tragic situations. And hopefully when you get to speak some of the children, to a couple of the children today, you'll see that that there's not hope for them to go back to a country that they're leaving. So we get a broad spectrum. We have kids that come into custody and are reunified rather quickly if everything is in order. And then we have some children that will, unfortunately, and fortunately, stay within the system for a number of years until they can qualify for refugee status and move on to our other sister program.
All right, let's stop right there. Now, there are literally hundreds of these clips of Hillary and Dianne Feinstein and everybody else. Joe Biden, Barack Obama saying you can't just come here and don't bring your kids. But then the globalists just decided, hey, let's sabotage the whole country. Let's just tell them do it. And that's what they've done in Europe as well. This is so dangerous. This is so bad. This is so evil. So just in the space of 4 years, they've totally changed their tune and think you have no memory. Remember, Gruber said, we think you're dumb. We think you're goldfish. Scientifically, they've had the TV and the ads and the children's shows are discordant and mentally ill, too short in attention spans. Yeah, this has been done by design to literally brainwash the public in their own words. By the way, when you take regular marketing and a normal college level degree, when I was going to ACC Community College for 2 years, I realized it was near worthless. They were teaching subliminal advertising, brainwashing, repetition. They were teaching that in the first textbook, beginner media. It was like the first television was invented in Russia and was a mechanical. And then another, and it was like Marconi and the radio, and then subliminal advertising and blah, blah, blah. They are on record. I met with a psychiatrist, he's dead now, who headed up a U.S. government program. He owned a group of radio stations in Minnesota, and he wanted to eat with me. He wanted to meet with me, and he put me on his radio stations. And I looked him up later. I couldn't believe who I had dinner with Ted Anderson. Ted Anderson was there. And I flew up there to meet with this guy because, you know, I jumped through a lot of hoops, you know, 15, 16, 17 years ago to get stations. And he ran psychological operations for a corporation that had worked for the CIA and the Pentagon. And he said he couldn't tell me because it was all classified, but he was pissed. And he was quite a character, too. And later I went and looked up who he was. I was like, my God, that guy ran major programs. And he said that they are teaching, they're giving people subliminal messages to make them weak, to make them sick, because if your brain thinks it's sick, it is, and to make you like stunted and to lower your brain waves and to confuse sexuality and to break up the family. And he was telling me all this. I guess that was more than 15 years ago. God, that was 18 years ago. 18 years ago. And I ought to get Ted on sometime. He was there at the meeting. We had lunch for 2 hours. Then I went by the guy's, one of his radio stations. He put me on one of them. He was going to put me on like all 5 he had, but he didn't. But he was a liberal too, but he was freaked out, man. He was freaked out because he knew about the projects and the tests they did, and then he couldn't believe they because this was stuff that they were thinking about beaming into Russia and stuff to mess up their population. And he couldn't believe it was that because they were theoretically tasked to study it to, quote, counter it, too. And he couldn't tell me all of it. But, I mean, I already know most of it. Most of it's already been declassified. That's what I'm getting at, folks. When you watch CNN or MSNBC or cartoons or any of this, you're being hit with major league psychological warfare. And there's the overt propaganda. There's the covert propaganda. There's carrier waves. There's all sorts of subliminals. I mean, you're getting hammered hard. And by the way, just to be involved in stuff like this is so evil and so anti-human. To be involved in the production of this messes people up. And that's why I'm saying, why do you serve evil? Why don't you just serve good? You'll feel so good. But you guys can't help it till later. A lot of times when they're old, they figure it out. Let's go out to break with a little clip of Obama contradicting himself. Here it is.
Our message absolutely is don't send your children unaccompanied on trains or through a bunch of smugglers. We don't even know how many of these kids don't make it and may have been waylaid into sex trafficking or killed because they fell off a train. We have no way of tracking that. So that is our direct message to the families in Central America. Do not send your children to the borders. If they do make it, they'll get sent back. More importantly, they may not make it.
But now the Democrats, I got a stack of news, are saying, come on, baby, come on. More meat for the grinder, more death, more blaming America, more bitching, more complaining. We'll be back with your phone calls, the Ellis Island breakdown, and a lot more. Stay with us. I'm Alex Jones.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
If you are receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Extendowise, the latest product from InfoWarsLife.com, fuses all the known compounds that have been proven to be good for our hearts and cardiovascular system. And listen, everybody's got a heart. Well, actually, maybe Hillary and George Soros don't, but everybody else has a heart, and this product is amazing. So, if you have a heart and you want the very best product out there that's designed to aid a healthy heart and cardiovascular system, it's Extendowise, available at InfoWarsLife.com. And like all of our products are game changers, this baby is the most souped up, awesome version the top formulators could come up with and still be affordable. It's one of the very best heart pills out there. It's Extendowise. So, get some for yourself and family and friends. It's got the very best fish oil from the fjords. It's very, very pure, very, very clean, and has the EPA type that is specifically good for the heart, cardiovascular system. It's got the properly formulated type of CoQ10 and more. It is Extendawise, now available at InfoWarsLife.com.